You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the Town of Swanzey Planning Board meeting.
Meeting of the Planning Board here at Whitcomb Hall. And I'll begin with the roll call. Scott Self, that's me, I'm here. Richard Lane.
Here.
Jane Johnson.
Here.
Brandon Self is not here. Michael York.
Here.
Victoria Ames.
Here.
And Bill Hutwelker, Selectman's rep, and he is not here. And Steve Malone, alternate,
Here.
is here. Michael Scungio, alternate, is not here. And Brian Vertigo, alternate, is not here. And I will sit Steve for Brandon. And I will read the agenda, which is, we have applications and public hearings. Item A is a public, it will be a subdivision application public hearing. Cardinal Surveying and Land Planning requests a two-lot subdivision on behalf of Judy L. Driscoll for the property located at 39 Warmac Road. Subject property is shown at tax map 26, lot 11-2 in the rural agricultural district. Then under other business and discussions, we have a preliminary conceptual consultation with a conservation subdivision by Judd, Dexter. And we have a preliminary conceptual consultation with FW Webb site plan review. And we have a Conservation Commission, a Wildlife Habitat and Natural Resource Protection Audit, possibly a plan reading workshop, and any other business as may be required. So getting back to the top of things, we need a regional impact vote if anything on our agenda requires us to notify the surrounding towns.
Made the motion,
Motion by Richard Lane that we do not need regional impact. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Steve Malone. Is there any further discussion? Then all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And we have minutes of May 11th, 2023. Does anybody have anything on those minutes that we have? And if not, a motion to accept them as presented would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Victoria to accept the May 11th, 2023 minutes as submitted. Is there a second? Seconded by Jane Johnson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that brings us to our first item, item A. That's the subdivision application. It's a minor subdivision. And I thought that maybe we could just go over it on a checklist to make sure everything's there, to see if the application is complete.
37 waivers requested by the applicant.
Let's get to those first, and, yeah, let's get to those first before we go over the... Now, let's read we'll do the waivers afterwards. Let's make sure everything's on the plan. And we'll just, they've got it marked on here that they're asking for waivers on the checklist, so just anybody grab the drawing in front of you there, and we'll make sure that everything's on here. I'll go over the list. So we've got the proposed subdivision name and title, which is right down here on the title block. Well, we'll look at that. And the name and address of the owner, which we've got up here under the notes. That's usually where we find it. And the scale of 1 inch 30 equals 30 feet. They're asking for a waiver on that one. And let's see, they've got 1 inch equals 50 feet because it fits better on the paper there. Get to the waiver. North arrow, we see it up top on the left. Got that there. Locus plan, we see that in the very top right-hand corner. Gives us a vicinity of where the thing is. And we have a name, license number, and seal of the surveyor. This is right down here on the bottom right-hand there. And boundary and survey, including bearings, distances, and locations of permanent markers. And we see the boundaries, markers in the corners. We see the location, and we see the distances, the directions of them laid out on the plat. And this is another waiver item, location and profiles with elevations of existing water mains, sewer, culverts, drains, and proposed connections or alternative means of providing water supply and sewer disposal. And they're asking for a waiver because there's no public sewer there. It will be putting in a septic system. Let's see, item 9, existing and proposed easements, rights of way, buildings, water courses, ponds, standing water, rock ledges, stone walls, and other essential site features. And there aren't too many here. There's a couple of buildings, the barn and a building here. That's a site feature there. Don't see too much else on it there, but we'll take their word for it that it's all there. And location of property lines, including entire undivided lot areas and frontage on public right of way, and you see the entire lot outlined for us. See the frontages on the public way, which is Warmac Road, right in the front there, laid out in the distances. And item 11, tax map and lot number according to the town of Swanzey numbering system. Right in the center of the lot, we got map 26 and lot 11, 002, 01. They've got, this is the main one right here, right? Okay, map 26, lot 11, 02. That's the main one. That's a secondary one for the,
That's the proposed.
that's the proposed lot for the 110201. Okay, there it is, 01. Yep. See existing and proposed topographical contour boundaries, 5-foot intervals. And as we see them, we've gone over before this line, so we can see that it's fairly flat, 520, 510, 515. Nice flat piece of land there, except in the right-hand corner. And location of groundwater. I think there's something running through that property over there, isn't there? There's a stream, the stream on the right-hand
It's a
side.
brook.
Yeah, because we can look on the legend on the left-hand side, it tells us there's a stream on there, and we can see that right over here. And you see perk tests and test results, they're looking for a waiver on that because they don't have anything planned on it, they're just subdividing it, and it's over 5 acres. Let's see, soil mapping types, slopes and boundaries. So we've got the soil types, we see 308, is it? 10B, and we've got them, listed up on our left-hand sides under the soils legend. We've got 10B, 24B, okay, it's 30B, and it tells us basically what the soils are. Pretty well drained over there. And deed restrictions, don't know if there are any deed restrictions or not, but maybe, but they've got it checked off here. I don't see anything here. Are there any deed restrictions on there?
There are not.
Okay. And open space to be preserved, which, nothing being preserved on there, just stay there. Okay, existing buildings and other man-made structures to remain, and the buildings we see on the left-hand lot there, there's a barn there, and there's a existing dwelling there, see on the map. And existing and proposed streets with classes, names, and right-of-way widths. Let's see, the existing streets would be the Warmac Road right there, nothing else coming in here. And let's see, final road profiles and cross-sections, they're asking for a waiver there because they aren't putting any roads in the property. All drainage and erosion control plans approved by the CCCD, if applicable, and it's not applicable. And they're asking for a waiver on that one. State subdivision septic approval, and they're asking for a waiver there because it's over 5 acres. Each lot is over 5 acres. And state highway municipal access permit, if applicable. And they're asking for a waiver on that, but we probably should have them determine somewhere where the driveway is going to be going, when we get talking to them about it. So, let's see. So it looks like they've got everything on there. Do we have any questions what isn't on there, anybody?
What's CCCD?
I don't know what that stands for. Sarah, what is that?
I actually don't remember.
Consultation district.
Oh, thank you, Jane, the expert on the board. Okay. So if it looks complete, then a motion that the application is complete and ready for public hearing would be in order.
So moved.
Question.
Oh, we have a motion by Victoria that the application is complete and ready to go to public hearing. Do we have a second? Seconded by Steve Malone. Any further discussion? Yes.
So this whole section is going to be developed at a future date, so that would have to come back before the board if they're going to put in a road or anything that's involved in their home, septic, et cetera.
No, the planning board has jurisdiction over subdivisions and jurisdiction over business, but not residential. If they're putting more than duplex in there, they'd have to come back. If they put a road in there, a driveway they're going to put in there, they would have to go to the road agent for the driveway, because he signs off on that. But other than that, it would be code enforcement. They wouldn't be in front of us. Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second that the application is complete and ready to go to public hearing. Any further discussion? Then all those in favor, continue by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, it's accepted, and now I will open the public hearing, and let me make the presentation. We're ready for you.
Do you need to vote on the waivers first?
Oh, sorry about that, yeah. We should have done that first there. Sorry.
Sorry.
They asked for the waivers, and we have a list of those waivers here. I have them. And the waivers they're asking for are item number 3, has to do with the scale. Item number 8 has to do with the water and sewer mains. Number 14, about the perk test results. And item number 20, the final road profiles. Item number 21, which is the drainage control plans. Item number 22, state subdivision approval. And item number 23, the state highway and municipal access permit. And they're asking for a waiver on those. So
it's a town road, right? So it would be only a municipal access permit.
it would be, and that would be done by the road agent.
Yeah.
Yeah, where their driveway is.
So I'm not concerned, but shouldn't that be indicated on the subdivision plan that there is a way? I mean, we know.
We
there's a
usually
way, but
require
shouldn't
that
it
to be indicated on there, yeah. I see they've got an existing gravel field entrance, but I don't know if that's going to be the one or not, but we usually request that it's indicated where a driveway could be put. It doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be there, because the road agent may change it and say, no, I want it here
Yeah.
or there.
I think right now it's just a crushed rock that goes into,
Yeah,
starts off Warmac.
Yeah, just after the bridge, or the big culvert, just after the culvert.
So to me,
So-
that feels like a technicality, but probably it should be shown. But
Are you saying you don't want to grant them that part of the waiver and the other waivers fine? Is that what you mean? Or are you just questioning that?
I'm not concerned about this particular situation, but it seems like it should be indicated, on the paperwork that it is possibility to put a driveway on there
Yeah,
and where it might go.
we can put that as a condition, because we usually do require it.
Let's do that.
Or,
Yeah.
Jane? But recently we had, but recently we had been making them demonstrate that they could put an access to the lot, to the property.
And that's what you mean.
And that's what we're talking about here.
Right, yeah.
And they, they've got plenty of site distance on this property. If you look at the
Yeah.
location map and stuff there, and they won't have a problem with it that I see. They do have a gravel entrance right there to the property, which I suppose could be used as a driveway. Whether they'll use it as a driveway or not, we don't know. So I guess it comes down to that waiver, the one about the access permit. And we aren't making them have a permit anyways. It's just that they need to show it on the plans, usually where one can be, and they have shown something there.
I had a question on the where is it now? Perk test for the
Yeah,
water on
item number 14.
the newly created plot.
So they're asking for a waiver on that because this is over 5 acres. It does not have to go to the state to get them to approve a septic on it. And they aren't proposing where a septic is right now. They're just proposing a subdivision. When they do come in with a septic designer, they will have to do the perk test, and the code enforcement will have to make sure that it's up to par and can support a subsurface disposal system. In other words, a septic system.
And it'll have to be approved by the state at that point anyway.
Yeah, that's at that point, yeah.
Yeah.
But not to be subdivided because it's over
No,
5 acres.
not to be subdivided, no.
And what you told us about soils, we know that all these, we'll have no problem with that either.
Yeah,
right? So-
by the looks of their, yeah, they've got a problem there with that. So getting back to the waivers.
I'll move that we grant the waivers.
Okay, and a motion, okay, we need a second too. Motion by Michael York to grant all of the waivers that they're asking for, all 7 of them. Is there a second? Seconded by Richard Lane. Is there any further discussion on the waivers? Then all those, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so now we can go to public hearing. Now I will officially open up the public hearing.
All right, so let me call it to a Cardinal survey. This is as you read in the agenda, it's just a very simple subdivision. It's 12.31 acres. This is Warmac Road. Route 32 is over here. It's the first lot in on the right. There's an existing house and barn. All we want to do is basically split it in half. It's beautiful, beautiful field, beautiful soils. See any problem with future building, but there is no plans at this point
Yep.
to develop that.
Okay. And
About it.
other than that, right, there
That's
isn't
about
much
it.
else to say about
There
it.
is that stream along the side, but it shouldn't impact, I mean, it's on the boundary, it won't impact, a house site or septic or anything else.
And they've got the frontage requirements on the
Frontage
road.
requirements,
Um, And I see, we just discussed that entrance into this new lot that you're making there, down at the bottom there, the gravel field entrance there. Is that a proposed driveway or that just existing?
That's existing, that's where they come into Hayter Field.
Okay.
It is quite a nice entrance, but without knowing where they might build.
It may not be the
they-
driveway.
right. I could put a driveway, like you said, there's no problem, site distance or anything else
Yeah,
out here, so.
there isn't much there. The road agent will either approve it or not approve it. You have to go to them or they will have to go to them for the permit.
But is there a stone wall along there, going west of that entrance on the proposed new lot?
On here?
Yes.
No,
There is no stone
No.
wall along
Nope, we didn't locate any stone wall back there.
Okay. Questions from the board? Questions from the public? Anybody here for this subdivision? Nobody back there, I guess. And then nobody online? I guess you're monitoring who's online, right? Yeah. Okay. So if there are no further questions, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Objections to that? Then the public hearing is closed. So again, it's a pretty straightforward subdivision here. They've given us everything that we need by the looks of it. So, motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Michael York to approve the subdivision. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Steve Malone. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Let's see, let's turn it way better yet. That was
And then I'll get 2 copies of this one. So, and Shane will be sitting this one out if you want to move to this side, if it makes it easier for you to look at the plan.
Fairly large, I think.
Okay.
Okay, this brings us up to discussions, and the first order of discussion is a preliminary conceptual consultation. This is a conservation subdivision presented by Judd, Dexter, and this is just to generally look it over and conceptual wise and see what's going on. And
Thank you.
you're welcome.
This is my first venture into this kind of development. I would not be here if it wasn't for Sarah and Mike's help. We were absolutely done a fantastic job in terms of this process.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, the property is part of the Hills property. It's been in the family for 200 years. The parents passed away a few years ago, and the original homestead, the Little White Cape, has been rented for a while. What happened is, this past year, the tenant decided that he wanted to purchase the property, and he approached my brother-in-law, Dave Hills, and said he'd like to buy the place, but it was on the condition he was going to try to go for a subdivision to try to offset some of the costs of buying the property. And basically, with the frontage we have, he was just going to line up a bunch of houses in the field. And either leaves sister, my wife. And I absolutely did not think that was a good idea. His family's tried to preserve the look of that property for 200 years. You know, the fields are there, and it butts the old forest, and we want to try to do whatever we can do to do that. So we ended up taking on this concept with the town's help to divide the property into these types of lots. The lots, again, I had no idea about this conservation easement process at all until I worked in your office. That the houses, that the fields will all be preserved as they are. The little white cape obviously is still staying there, but the other houses, the lots are large enough that the houses would be set back in the woods, so that you wouldn't see the houses. The property, we're basically bordered on all sides of the property by either Hill Forest or Hill Stanley. So that there shouldn't be a problem there. I did go to, part of the reason I wanted to try to get this preliminary thing is in the efforts of, the next step is to get a formal survey to present to you. Number one, you can't find a surveyor. There's somewhere to find a surveyor.
Just missed one.
Oh, she's a surveyor. Stop! And when I did find one, they're over in Amherst, and just to look, they're gonna charge $35,000. And I said, until we have some idea whether or not this can go forward, I don't think we wanna make that kind of commitment. So I did contact soil engineers, a couple of septic people to find out about what goes on there. Each house, we just put in a well this past summer at the little White House. And it turns out it's all sand there. They hit, I think they went down 80 feet before they actually hit the basin. And I think the well can do something like 40 gallons a minute. Right.
And that's the house that's already on the property,
That's
right?
the house that's on the property. And that, again, that has an existing septic system that's on the back side of it. So there's no way, and when I talked to the soil engineers, he said all of this right here has all been tested in the past, and there's no reason to think that it would have any problem with a flip test or with water. Again, my brother-in-law's, the packet that Sarah sent out had an aerial photograph. And then the house, yes, and the house is right across the road, it has a big field.
Point it out for us, maybe?
I'm looking at one side of it. The subdivision that we're, this is Sawyer's Crossing Road. This is Ash Hill Road. That's my brother-in-law's house. The little white house is that one, and that's my house. So, and this is, I'm not sure how, you got the photograph and how we got the lines here, but I'm not quite sure that's quite to scale, but I don't know that.
It's close.
Okay. So, it's, the area we're talking about has a grade of, in going back 200 feet, it only has a rise of about 20 feet. It's right at the base. There's watershed that comes down off the hillside, off Crescent. But it divides left and right of the property. One side, as they're facing the property, one side goes to the left, comes down right next to the road, Ash Hill Road, and then goes through a culvert and feeds into James Pond. You know, but that's seasonal. May to October it's dry, but there are ferns and things there. And that's why we included that in as part of the protected area. There's no reason, is the conservation zone? We actually included that as part of the protection area, just so that no one would ever try to expand upon that. And then on the other side, actually, just past the left property line, there's a culvert on the road. And there's water that comes down off the hill, but it comes straight down off the hill. It doesn't cross into the area that we're talking about.
Is it this one?
Yeah, it's way over there. It just comes straight down. There's a little bit of a swale that comes from behind the White House that heads towards that. Right, it's actually in the back side of it, it's in the woods. But in the 40 years I've been here, I've never seen any water in it. So I think it's something that was around 200 years ago, but something changed. Global warming, I don't know. But, so that's kind of the concept we're looking at. For septic, we looked at two different plans. One was for individual septic systems on each house. The other was to have a community septic system that would support the 5 houses that are kind of on the cul-de-sac. And I don't know, I have no idea. It depends there, you have the economics and the design and all that, which makes more sense, and I just don't know.
Probably more the economics of it, the septic systems,
I have no idea.
individual as opposed to the common one. Were you, just get back to the land there, were you saying that there are slopes in the back of the property? Is it a slope or a steep slope back here?
Yes,
And you don't know how steep those are, because it depends on how many lots you can put in there, with the,
it
acreages.
doesn't start going up probably 250 feet back in the woods, which is well beyond where.
beyond where these are, you mean?
Yeah, where we're going now.
But, if,
Sorry,
And even there,
so anything greater than a 25% steep slope, you cannot use to calculate how many houses you can put on there. Nothing like that? Okay, that'd be 100 feet out and 25 feet down. That's a 25% slope. It's not that steep back there. But you'll find out when you survey. We're just going over there, just to let you know that, if it is steep like that, then it may take some of the lots that you can
and
develop
that's
away.
fine. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way it goes,
Okay.
that's the way it goes.
All right.
I don't know that too, I think that next step.
Do you know how, this land has been in the family for a long time, right?
20 years.
So it must have been a field at some point, right? Or was it used agriculturally? Do you know anything about that?
I understand it. Any place there's a stone wall, there was a field. And
Right,
there's stone
so-
walls all up through there.
Yeah, so that probably would speak to, probably wasn't super steep necessarily. If they
Oh,
were,
if it was used, yeah, probably
Yeah.
not, yeah.
depending on what they
No.
were doing on it.
And it is bordered by stone walls around a lot of the property. The property was surveyed by Yale, I think in the 30s. If not, because it's got, I think then they did it maybe in the 70s, because they put in all the white glazes then about 20 years ago. And I did talk to Yale Forest directly, and everybody's kind of accepting. The only neighbors you'll have on this is our family, and we kind of accepted that that's where the white blazes are, it's the way it's been. You go to the deeds, they were written up 200 years ago, you follow the broken stump and go out and you find a tree with a barbed wire fence. And of course so we just kind of accepted that. I asked Yale if they would accept their survey that were done with the blazes are as the property line, and we have nothing that's gonna be anywhere close to the property line anyways. And to establish that, for the survey, and they said, well, in Connecticut, they fight over land down to the last inch. And I said, we're a mutual agreement, can we make this happen? And the guy said, I would think it's certainly reasonable to ask, I'm not the chief that can answer that question. But, it's not, nobody's contesting it, I'm not sure why it would be.
So just looking this over. Go ahead.
This area here, I drove up by there the other day, and it appears that at some time during the spring or whatever, that it gets rather damp in there, because there's a lot of ferns growing and stuff like that in here. That's the unit,
Down at the
He's
bottom-
talking about right here.
Yeah, the yellow part does, further up, it's not, it doesn't, it slopes enough that it doesn't happen.
but it appears like it went back a ways this way too. So I don't,
Again, until I have somebody out there.
Yeah, you got to survey it,
yeah.
delineate the wetlands.
on your layout, you know, it looks like you've got a 50-foot strip here and here. What are these and what is that, right? That small little piece of land right there.
That's where, that potentially would be where the community septic would be.
I thought it might be right there.
The yellow on your left side, that is part of the main field.
Here?
Yeah,
So, per the ordinance, it looks like you have to have 100 feet instead of 50 feet as the buffer there, in front of there, because on the ordinance on item 6, it says, let's see, a minimum 100-foot buffer shall be maintained between individual lot property lines and all external road rights-of-way not part of the CRS. And that would be a road right-of-way right
Yes.
there. And the lot line, you've got to have 100 feet between the lot line and wherever the right-of-way of that road is, which,
I missed that.
did it put it somewhere back in there?
Yes,
And also the same way here, you have to have 100 feet of buffer area from the lot line to any piece of land that isn't part of the subdivision here, or not subdivision, into your CRS. So that would mean you'd have to have 100-foot buffer, you know, your property line would have to be back there 100 feet from there, and it'd have to be back there 100 feet from there. Let me just read that again, make sure I'm correct in it here. Okay, a minimum 100-foot buffer shall be maintained between individual lot property lines and adjacent property not part of the CRS. So those adjacent properties would be the Yale property.
right.
So you'd have to have the lot line would have to be 100 feet back from there, lot line would have to be 100 feet back from there, lot line would have to be 100 feet back from the road here, and these as well. The way I read it, it'd have to be 100 feet back from those as well for that.
Well, the existing house can't be moved.
I know it, but I'm just going over what we're reading, this conceptual, you know.
Right.
I'm just making you aware of all these things that we're looking at. And there'd have to be 100 feet, let's see, between that and that line there somewhere, according to the regulations. Now, you can ask for waivers, I think ZBA and that type of stuff.
Okay.
Also, you show 175 feet frontage on this little feeder road right here on both of these lots, and the maximum is 100 feet frontage on the road, according to,
Well, I thought you have a minimum of 100 feet.
no, it's a maximum, I think it's a minimum of, let me see, it's a minimum frontage, 100 feet, maximum road frontage, 150 feet, sorry, yeah. Minimum is 100 feet, maximum 150, and that's 175 there.
Well, again, easily changed.
Yeah, easily changed. Just making you aware of it. That, you know, we aren't,
Okay.
it's in the site plan review. We're just discussing this, so you don't spend a bunch of money and have us say, hey, wait a minute,
Well-
you can't do that.
It's,
So,
I know a lot about eyeballs. I'm not an engineer on this stuff.
no, and you don't have to be. No, we're just going over this. And again, 175 as opposed to the 150 there. And I don't know what the distance on this cul-de-sac is there, you know, the frontage on there, whether it's got the minimum frontage on there or not, 100 feet or not.
And that whole piece can be moved further up and add to the buffer down closer to the road. Because Duckwood Road's on the state conservation anyway.
Yep.
So I have no objection to moving things around.
Let's see, I just had some notes. I went over your drawing here, so I'm just going over my notes, make sure I'm conveying them to you. Let's see, and these lots here also exceed the 150-foot frontage. Those two right there. I know one's an existing house on there, but if it's going under this ordinance, unless you have a variance from it, they have to be 150 or less, or between 100 and 150, those two lots there. Let's see.
Wouldn't the existing house there be grandfathered?
Well, that's on the entire lot, correct? The existing house is not a lot of its own.
Correct.
Correct, so it's on so that's not really grandfathered because it's the entire lot. You're subdividing that off of it.
Right.
Now, again, the house is there and, you know, you take 100 feet from the road to that house, it's probably gonna run into that house. You know, I'm talking about that front setback here, 100 feet into there. So possibly a variance might be in order for something like that.
And I absolutely would agree. Again, this is where I need professional guidance to make this all work, but, hopefully the variance can be granted. I don't think, again, the abutter being Yale Forest and us.
Oh, it makes perfect sense to have it, you know, to do what you're doing makes perfect sense with the Yale Forest surrounding and all. But
Yeah,
just making it conform to what the ordinance reads is what we're
Okay.
doing here, or
Got it.
in here. But yeah, possible variance would solve that problem there on that house lot there. Let's see. And yeah, again, I think that was about it. It was just the buffers we were talking about with the 100-foot minimum, again,
Yeah.
buffer from the road, and that has to be up in there somewhere, according to that, and it'd have to be 100 feet there, have to have 100 feet there and there from any property that is
Okay.
not part of
Yeah,
it.
I misunderstood that when I read it.
No, it's-
Easy to change.
that's what we're doing here, yeah.
Okay.
So, rest of the board members are, Sarah,
Are you going to market to workforce, or is it going to be market value?
It's, again, we're looking probably a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom home. It's a very nice section of town. It's,
Well, I know exactly where it is.
Right.
I've lived in Swansea all my life, so I know where you're
so
talking.
it's, you know, that we will, if and when this goes forward, we will, part of the sales of the lots will be, the design would be, approval would be based on,
Well, you can do either one. We would just probably like to know if you want to do a market house or do you want to do a workforce house, and there's a difference.
in all honesty, I don't know the difference. I don't know what workforce housing is by definition.
It's very difficult to build those kind of homes or workforce, what they consider workforce in the state of New Hampshire.
It's hard to,
It's very difficult.
even when I,
Because developers want, you know, whoever does the building is gonna want a profit. And, yeah, because then you're talking 280,000 for what any developer will actually build these days.
yeah. no,
So
I
they can
know.
make some money on it themselves.
Right. No, I understand that.
And that's way above, in my opinion, that's way above, workforce housing in this area.
I would think so too. And, no,
But it's your choice. I mean, you can do either one.
in all, I haven't got that far to get farmers. I don't know the pitfalls of workforce housing, so. And it sounds like potentially a pretty good fit.
Something you probably should look into when you're developing your plans.
Oh, yeah, this is really, and in all honesty, we're not anticipating this to happen very fast. You know,
It's come to be difficult to nail down a surveyor that wants to do the work right now.
oh, right now, the only one I found last year, they were out 6 months,
They have to indicate
just
that
to
this is
get them
going
here.
to be
It's horrible.
reserved.
yep.
Okay.
In
Primary,
fact,
secondary.
When they do the survey, they have to show the primary and secondary.
Surveyor, I thought, man,
I don't know that, but yeah, it has to be.
you have to do an apprenticeship for 6 years.
Yes.
There's also about the roads, you know, there's, it says that all the housing lots on, or housing lots on this
Yep,
property have to be accessed by one road, and it'll be essentially like existing driveway and another road, or a driveway for that one right there, which doesn't quite meet those regulations. Meaning, this house, I would think that you'd get a variance for that, because that house already has a driveway on it, you know.
right. The other ones, you know, it's in the middle of the
These off
driveway,
here, yeah.
would be middle of a field.
And putting those lots side by side, you might get a variance from that, but that's just something to be aware of, that it
Right.
goes, it's against what the regulations spell out. That's
And,
all.
and as I understand it, when you put in the road, it takes it out of the conservancy.
The road itself,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, this road here would not be in the.
It seems to me it would work against what we're trying to do, putting in a lot more road.
Well, it probably does, but the way they're written, all the
Okay.
lots have to be off of one road. It doesn't have to be that road, it has to be a road, one road, feeding all the interior lots on there. But again, you've got that lot there, which is the existing,
Right,
which might be good, you know, fodder for a variance.
okay,
And we can play with it around to see about that lot there, to see how far out you have to come here with that 100-foot buffer back there to push this back that way.
okay,
And these, it'd be pushed over this way because of the 100-foot buffer between
right.
Yale Forest and that property there, so it'd probably push it that way there.
Well, and look, part of the choice of putting the cul-de-sac where it is the existing barway and a stone wall right there.
Oh, is there?
And it's
Yep.
200 feet from the corner. So it gives you a better sight line.
Well, again, you know, variances, they're for the one size don't fit all type of thing,
Okay.
yeah.
on the ball of the, proposed road here. Is there sufficient street frontage?
We don't know yet. We went over that to see if there's enough, there's between 100 and 150 feet. The minimum is 100 and 150 is the maximum, so we don't know yet, but they'll have to end up with their,
I tried to get them so we were at least 100
on the,
on each of the frontage,
okay.
on each of
all right,
those.
so
And
basically,
it's because of the shape of those, it's easier to make it bigger and make the cul-de-sac a little longer, and it just pushes everything back
yeah.
a little bit.
Can I ask a question? You said there's an existing bar at the corner, I'm assuming it's the Ash Hills or crossing.
Yes,
Okay, so the proposed driveway is 200 feet back from that?
it's approximately 200 feet from that.
Okay, it's just,
It-
it was hard to tell on that, and I was just
Right.
gonna make sure you knew it has to be at least 125 feet back
From
from
the
an intersection.
Yes, I
You
did
mean
pick
from
up on
here?
that.
Yep.
Yes, I did pick up on that, so,
Okay.
but, and I'm not sure if the bar is exactly 125 or 100. There's been a cut in the stone wall here forever.
Yeah, they're a good place to put it, right? 'Cause that's one of the things you're trying to preserve, right? All the stone walls in there.
I don't think it's legal in New Hampshire to disturb a stone wall.
Probably isn't.
Well, I'm gonna variance on that.
Yeah. So, let's see, any other comments from the board on what he might want to pursue before it gets too far into it?
Without details, we just covered what he,
Well, yeah, this
Has
it's
to do
not
by
supposed to be
regulations.
detailed anyway. It's
No.
supposed to be conceptual, which we're laying, property lines and those types of things, distances and things.
No.
Any other suggestions? Anybody from the public on this? This isn't a hearing, but you can speak up if you want, say something, anything about it. Nobody on that one, I guess.
I just have a question, I guess.
Sure.
I've not been in on, I'm sorry, Sherry, John, Conservation Commission. I've not been in on the development of, CRS, you call it, right, Conservation
ERC,
Yeah, CRS Conservation
Yeah.
Residential Subdivision.
Residential Subdivision. Okay, I was kind of looking over the notes in the packet, and so I haven't been part of the process before, and I'm just curious, does it, I know, well, so it does go to the Conservation Commission, correct, before it gets approved?
let's see, probably not. Well, you usually are apprised of everything, so yeah, it would be. Wouldn't it be sent to those guys?
Yeah, all of the
Yeah,
pending applications.
any
go through
application.
Concom for review.
So officially when it comes before us, because this is not official right now.
Yes,
Okay.
right, I know you're not at that stage yet. So then who is responsible for developing, and do you do an easement on it? Who takes care of that? And does it become the responsibility of the Conservation Commission then to monitor that going forward?
I suppose it can be if the Conservation Commission wants to do that. It all depends how it's written up as far as, how it's going to be conserved. And it's supposed to be conserved for public use type, hiking and those types of things, hunting probably too, and that type of stuff. But
There's, on page 9 of the final adopted version of the regulations, it says, item number 7, conservation land or any portion of it shall be held, managed, and maintained by the developer until at least 51% of the lots or dwellings have been sold. At that time, the conservation land shall be owned in one or more of the following ways: in common by a homeowners association, 2 is by a land trust, or other suitable private nonprofit organization registered with the state of New Hampshire, that will ensure that the conservation land shall be held in perpetuity as conservation land. And 3 is by the town of Swanzey, which may accept the conveyance of any conservation land for perpetual public use and maintenance if accepted pursuant to RSA 674-41, and only if public access is guaranteed. So they have 3 options.
What's sort of the default?
Well, historically, the town of Swansea has not been super anxious to accept these kinds of parcels. So,
I was talking to my brother-in-law earlier, and there was one of the questions I wanted to bring up was what happens till then? It goes to conservation, but could it stay in the Hills Family Trust and
Yeah.
they would manage the land. I mean, it's,
Yeah, well, I think that would be option A. So by a land trust, again, I don't think a land trust would be interested in assuming responsibility for land that's so closely, it's a fairly small parcel and it's so closely associated with residences. So probably the option would be the homeowners association, which would be something that you would design, and present as part of.
But you wouldn't be part of it. You're talking about your family sort of looking it over or watching over it, because if it's a homeowners association, unless you live there, you would not be part of the homeowners association.
the,
Yeah, it gets tricky because part of your motivation is I know you want to protect this land, and yet you're handing it off to the people who live in these houses. And
It's probably a good
Something will
question
have to
to
be
get a hold of a
rented,
land
how it's gonna be
to
conserved.
ask that question,
Whatever
Yeah.
they decide.
what your best option is. Yeah.
I that's part of it is that obviously my brother-in-law and my wife both really want to have their own, it's kind of good spirit out of the family. So we'll need to get an answer to that.
you could you could have your attorney check out some of the, land trust kinds of entities, but I think most would be reluctant. Just rule of thumb.
Well, I've a fairly good connection with the Harris Center. And I have
Yeah.
property on Silver Lake, and they have the Silver Lake Land Trust over there.
Yeah, talk to them and find out what they think.
Yeah, might be a good idea.
Because I think that would meet your goals.
Yeah.
Probably better than anything.
Okay.
Can I just ask though, is it sort of the default then that the property, say nobody does anything, to sort of follow up on these options? Do they have to follow up on these options? I mean, how am I trying to say this? So is it automatic when this is developed that this property is sort of held in common or in
It's,
common, I guess, in perpetuity by the landowners, by the property owners, the subdivision owners?
it's per ordinance, we're talking about the ordinance, per ordinance, and like Victoria just said, after 51%, I think it's 51% of the lots or dwellings have been sold, then they can do one of the three options there. Otherwise,
Then they can or then they have.
well, they have to, yeah.
So if they don't really do anything, does it sort of automatically then become like a cooperatively owned?
No, one of those options have to be done at some point. It may, if someone's not paying attention, it may go beyond the 51%, I suppose it could.
That's what I'm wondering. If someone's not paying attention, then what happens? Is it in limbo? Is it?
I guess you could,
The landowners could go, let's all get together and sell this as another lot.
no, you can't, no. They'd have to be in here first anyways for it, but no, if it went underneath that subdivision, then that's where it's gonna be. It's gonna stay right there, and that land that was laid out, whatever it's gonna be that was laid out for the conservation will be conservation land. Just, a formality as to how it's gonna be managed is what we're talking about.
So
If it's conservation land, is it required that it's publicly accessible?
It depends on who takes it over. If the town takes it over, it's a requirement. I don't know about a land trust, what their parameters of it would be.
And what of the homeowners association?
Whatever is written into their rules, yeah, I don't know.
And haven't we, I'm just thinking about when we've done like condominiums that have land associated with them, don't we request that those the homeowners association papers be part of
Yep.
the approval? So if option A is selected here, that would be something to be aware of, that, if you chose to do that. That
And
you'd have to develop
bottom line
those,
is, until we actually have a formal survey, come in and get approval to do this, nothing changes.
yeah, it's way down the road.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I think to help solve the question is you write into your transfer of deed what you want done with that particular part of the property. And as we put in a deed restriction on a project up by the airport, do that, and that will help cover
So that
Or it should
as
cover
each
what-
parcel sells, it's just part of that purchase and sale agreement.
Correct. But that has to be set aside as reserved and cannot be changed.
Right.
You just
That
have-
makes sense.
Okay, any other questions for us? Anything you can think of? No, well,
No, I think that's some homework.
yeah, you do, and plus you can always write, as you have, come in to talk to Sarah, and she'll have probably all the answers that you need. You know, you run into something that we didn't cover here.
The one request I have, Sarah, don't get sick again.
She's not allowed only so many sick days a year.
So just a thought, because you do know this land, and one of the things that is talked about in these regulations are conservation values, you know, the cool features of the land. That would be, that's something that you are kind of exclusively able to document, because you know the land, right? So you might just, when you're taking your walks this spring, you know, if you see, like, you know, if you note things that seem
There's
special.
all kinds of animals up there.
Yeah.
You know, I had a bear in my dumpster the other day.
Yeah,
And there are trails, but they're further up into Yale Forest,
Uh-huh.
they're not there. And as far as, I think there was things like animal trails and all that, they can go wherever they want.
but there might be some things related to its former agricultural use that, you know, in addition to
Yeah,
the stone walls.
On the other side of the river, where the bowl and the Ash River is, where that field, that went through an extensive architectural field, 40 years ago or so. And they were there all summer long. And
Let's see, the town attorney usually has, if we see it first or not.
Sure.
But other than that, I don't know the other ones.
So that's another way of restricting the use of that land.
Well, when you start working with your
Yeah, I
engineer.
think the best
you know,
option is go to the attorney, so.
they'll have great ideas about configuring lots and stuff like that. And when they do the soil work, you know, that will reveal some information about the parcel too.
And do you have a copy of the regulations, or did Sarah give you a copy of those? She has a copy, and this might be helpful too. I'll just give you my copy of it here, which is it just lays out some of the things that your surveyor might want to just be looking for when they're surveying it to put on the plat. Those types of
Yes,
things.
yeah, I did notice that.
Okay.
When I went through this, I didn't think I found hardly anything but blood. It's pretty boring. You know, the diversity of trees is the same diversity as any other part of the.
Yeah, a lot of
Just-
fine, I bet.
Just have the surveyor note it on the plat when they survey it.
Well,
And they'll-
and as far as views, we don't want views. We don't want the houses to be suitable. We want them back in the woods. So it
Yeah.
doesn't spoil the aesthetic look of where the land is right now.
It gives the owners more privacy too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You don't hear the traffic come down the street.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
you
it
know,
was quiet this afternoon because there's a bus across the road with a bird down. So
see,
it's interesting.
get you in touch with the surveyor and talk it over. I don't know if the zoning board of adjustment has a preliminary review type like we do there, but if they did, you could go and ask them about possible variances before you get too far into it as well.
No, with Sarah's guidance, I'll do that over
They,
time.
they don't have a preliminary
No, I
review,
didn't
but
think they
you
did.
can apply for a whole ton of variances before you get.
Yeah, before you go too far into it.
Fix what I can, and those that don't fix well, that's where I start with the variances. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks for coming in.
Any other questions for me?
anybody? I guess not.
I'll talk to you later. I'm not saying anything.
I knew that was coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too, thank you. Okay, brings us to item B, and that would be another preliminary conceptual consultation, and that's FW Webb site plan review. So we're here to take a look at what you might be proposing over there informally and just to see how it might be laid out and answer any questions that you guys might have for us.
So I'm Jamie Anderson with Greenleaf Construction. I represent FW Webb. We're the general contractor, design build general contractor. And here's Matt Ruthier from TF Moran. And we are looking at the property located at, I believe it's 371 Old Homestead. The former runway. Fun Park, yes. As you may know, FW Webb is a plumbing and HVAC wholesaler. So they deal directly to the trades. And they are located right now currently in Keene, and they've been busting at the seams up there. So they've been looking for an alternate location to expand their capacity, because they have about 100 locations now in the Northeast. So they're growing market share, and like we said, they've been looking for a while. We actually tried another location in Safford Drive. We ran into some issues there with the site, and now they're looking at the 5-acre lot that's the runway fun park, and then also another adjacent 2-acre parcel that they have under agreement. So we're here to review our concept and get any kind of feedback that we may be helpful as we hopefully proceed on with the civil permitting portion here.
Great, thank you.
Is it either or? You said you're looking,
We'll be trying to obtain 2 acres out of this
oh, okay,
lot.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, so this 5-acre parcel goes from here to this line.
Okay.
And this is the other 2 acres that they have under agreement. So the other component, they sell to the contractors. The other component of the building is a 25,000 square foot warehouse in the back. Roughly 11,000 square foot self-serve. So that's, I sometimes call it a contractor, like plumbing contractor grocery store, because it's set up that way. It's got the aisles like a similar to a grocery store. We'll have all the smaller parts in there, and the warehouse, of course, stores some of the bigger stuff and also the overstock. And there's about a 3,400 square foot office part of it, and then 4,100 square foot showroom. So that would be new to the area. They don't have that currently at their key location. And that's more of display retail, we call it, where a contractor would make a recommendation to a homeowner, say, why don't you go down and pick out your potential new faucet or new bathtub or of the sort. So what we typically do there's a lot of, I guess we'll call it mock setups with all the different fixtures displayed. Some of them will be working, most of them not, but the homeowners can go in and kind of touch and feel everything, I guess. And that's a much smaller component of their business, but generally goes to the contractors. The other thing that you talked about was the outside storage yard.
Yeah, so with this concept, what the intent would be is to have a fenced-in area that encompasses the backside of the building. The main storage area outside would be in this particular area here. It's roughly 1.2 acres. The intent would be, again, to have that fenced in and access through controlled gates, and we would propose some kind of vegetated screen along there to block that. What we would be looking for and have to pursue is some special exceptions for the wholesale use and the outside storage, which is not allowed. So we would be pursuing that zoning before coming to you folks.
So is that like big racks of pipes would be stored? What's out there?
Generally, there'd be bundles of pipe that could stay outside. It wouldn't be any kind of copper or anything like that.
PVC.
Some PVC, cast iron, other soil pipe type things that would go underground. Kind of HVAC equipment that eventually ends up outside.
In deliveries, do you have, I see you have 2 driveways there. Is one of them for deliveries or not? You have one leading into your main parking lot by the office there, by the looks.
Yeah, that would be more for the contractors coming in. The self-serve entrance is here, this hatched out area, so that would have a sliding door. And then the office entrance would be here. The showroom entrance would be here, so we'd kind of keep the truck traffic, the bigger truck traffic here to the back, so they have 5 loading docks, I think 4 to day 1 and 1 would be a future loading dock. So the truck maneuver would pull in back into the docks and then exit that same road. So we try to limit the truck traffic to this curb cut, and then more of the contractors and homeowners and employees would be using that second curb cut there.
Would you be doing delivery with the bulk storage area? Would you be
Yep, Webb does a lot.
trucking that out?
Yep, Webb does a lot of deliveries to job sites, for example. That'd be like more like a, I guess we call it a 24-foot rack body or a box truck.
So you wouldn't have contractors coming in and using that same access to get into the yard for the
It's
pipes?
possible. The other part, we do have a small section up here, which they're gonna call their will call. So if there's something that's larger that would have to come from the warehouse, they could get loaded here in the back. So you wouldn't, there'd be an accurate door here, another accurate door here in the warehouse. So hypothetically, the truck would come over here, get loaded, and go back out.
Would the trailer on the truck be interior to the building or exterior?
Trailer would always stay exterior, it'd have loading docks and bumpers and dock levelers, so.
What is your vertical incline from 32 or decline from 32 into the parking area? Because that's not there, that's all
We're
slope.
working that out right now. That was one thing that we have some concerns on right now. We're trying to figure out what the.
Looks to be a little over 10% grade change.
Because if you're pulling a tractor trailer up out of there, that's gonna be kind of a tricky little maneuver to
Yep.
get up onto 32.
Yeah, we're anticipating we're gonna have to massage this a little bit to get some length in there, just flatten it out a bit. So again, this is kind of the general idea that there may be some changes as far as access, obviously with DOT working that out, safe distance around the corner and whatnot. And making sure we have the platforms that meet.
Yeah, it's a tough corner there, especially on that side of the road there. They're coming from the airport area and Keene area and down around that corner. And like Richard was saying, pulling out there. But again, yeah, if the DOT approves it, then they approve it.
Because on that corner is actually an incline, you hit the flat, and then, again, it's pretty flat to the end of your building. But coming up out of there would be my concern. In your sight line from that driveway eastward, are you putting vegetation in there, or is that gonna be open?
Well, this would be open far enough for the 400 plus feet around that side, so there wouldn't be anything blocking that site.
I'm talking coming east on 32.
On that side?
No, east, that's west.
Yeah, I mean, this would be, again, the 400 feet, this is a 60
Okay.
scale plan, so, we're out somewhere in here, so it's pretty much, that's why that's held a straight shot pretty much across that would have to be maintained for sight distance.
Okay.
Which brings us, roughly somewhere to that intersection, which is important.
And the center line for the glide path is where?
It's running down approximately here. We do have to deal with elevations and FAA permits for that as well, which we're working out elevations of building currently and what we have to do with that.
Plan to bring any fill or anything in there for any low areas? Or just level it out? Or what do you got?
I mean, it's pretty flat as it is, so I think we're hoping to maintain that as much as we can and probably sheet flow a lot of, the runoff to above ground stormwater in either direction. Obviously, we'll be putting in septic for the office space, which has all the bathrooms. We're anticipating these parking areas here will have a little bit deeper of a parking space and aisle, just due to the fact that the bigger vans that contractors drive. So we'd probably be at 10 by 20 on those versus the standard size, but that would only encompass, you know, that area there and the back of the contractor.
Speaking about parking, did you figure out what the parking was, or did they figure it out? You know, as far as parking requirements, because they've got a showroom there, but are we gonna consider that retail? Because if the customers are coming in there looking at the showroom, we're gonna buy this or that or whatever, for parking wise, you know, as far as,
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm under the impression that there are no retail sales there, and so the showroom is just so that customers can experience the fixtures and then, or not customers, but the public can come in and play around with the fixtures and then bring back their decisions to their contractor?
They do card sales, or they would sell to the homeowner in that case.
They would.
So it would be.
I was gonna say, I've gone to the present one and bought stuff in my house before.
same here, yeah, and you've got the other, I don't know, market type aisles you mentioned, that the contractors come in and grab their own stuff.
Yep.
And that'd almost be retail sales as well.
Yes,
And as
yes.
far as, we're just discussing parking requirements, because they're different for warehousing and retail and that type of stuff, so, I mean, no surprises on what you'd be required for parking. So, we'd need to know, yeah, the square footage of what's gonna be, I guess
Retail.
the aisle.
Yeah, retail versus the warehousing.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is, you know, there's going to be a mezzanine with more storage, so that would be added to the warehouse, so we'll have to, if that's the case, as far as the self-serve and the showroom being retail, we'll have to recalc that and obviously adjust accordingly, but I think we have ample room to get those spaces in that we need.
Yeah.
Other than the, I call it customer parking in the rear of the building, is there, where you said you're gonna have the trucks,
Well,
yeah.
this is again, because they're gonna be going into a self-serve to pick their stuff.
Where is there any other additional parking that you have in mind?
Not at this point in time, no, you know, depending on how we adjust this and what our calculations come out to, you know, we're probably looking at anywhere from 8 to 10 more spaces if that.
Are you thinking employees?
Employee parking, customer parking?
Well, the parking will be, you know, decided as
Usually
to,
included, I think.
but as to what it's used for, you know, that's why we're discussing parking now. Is the board in agreement that the showroom part and the self-serve part would be considered retail?
Yes.
If that's the case, then when you do your square footage for that, consider that retail.
Yep.
And the parking spaces required for that would be so. And then the warehousing will be for, of course, the one thing, and the office will be for the other thing. So I think that'll let you know what to plan on.
Typically, just for our planning purposes, when we do, I know the bylaws are different, but we, you know, we, in this size, we call this a twig. You know, if they had 15 customers at a time, they would be very busy. And you'd typically see early morning, there'd be the run where all the contractors are trying to get to their job site, so they're stopping in first, and then there'd probably be another rush towards the end of the day, you know, 2:30, 3 o'clock or so. So in this case, and then the showroom, day one, they're planning on only having 2 showroom associates there. So there'll be 2 salespeople there to start, and they'd like to grow into potentially 4 as they got busier. So if they had 3 people or 3 groups of people come through, they'd be pretty busy. So we understand that the retail does require that per the law.
We're just going for basic, you know,
Yep.
spaces required per use. So, you know, if you get calculating it out and you figure that, well, you know, this is, you know, like you're just talking about, you're only gonna be 3 people in here a day or however it is, you can come back and talk to us about it.
Yes.
And
Yep.
we can decide, but for now, I think you should just decide on, when you lay it out for parking spaces required for retail. If it's too much or something's wrong there, then come back to the
Yes.
board. and we
Yeah,
can talk
what it does get into, sorry, the long story short is, habitually, when we're doing projects for FWB, we end up going for variances based on, so the buildings usually are a little bit larger, so, just by the nature of the size of the building, it warrants more parking. but that they're not always necessarily need. So, but we'll plan on showing it and
Yeah.
talk it through as it gets further along.
And just, when you do your layout there, just, I guess, lay it out for maximum, you might get a variance that you wouldn't have to put that many in, but
Yep.
just so you can fit it on there, plan on that you'd have to have them on there.
How many employees would you anticipate at that location?
My programming sheet here, working with the manager, they're gonna have, the goal is to start with 16 employees. And I guess their 5 to 10-year plan would be an additional 11, so it'd be 27 employees. That would include managers, inside salespeople who would be working with the contractors, people who would be working the counter, warehouse employees, warehouse drivers. Yeah, so I think they'd be starting at 16.
I'm wondering if a traffic study might be advantageous for us, because it is going to drive more vehicle traffic to the site.
And heavier traffic too.
Right.
Well, we could see what the state weighs in on it, since it's their road,
Still no problem.
Yeah, but
Well,
but
that's
again,
what state of New Hampshire is.
a good place to start there is with the state as to whether they require a traffic study for that or
Yeah,
not.
I mean, our standard practice is to submit a traffic memo with the driveway permit. They usually tell us then whether they want to study.
With
and
your
we have our
projected
scoping
movements.
medium. Yeah. Kind of
As
grows
you
from there.
project it, yeah. And you can back that up with other buildings, I guess, other locations that you have there as to.
Yeah,
where
and
that
again,
movement-
it'll be
Well,
it'll
that's
be
two there.
compared against the use that was there before, and I'm not sure how busy, the park was previously at its peak.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I don't think you go by that. Can't go by that too much there. But
Got a lot of light poles. It must have been open late, right?
I would think that there are a lot of entrances and egresses on that corner, on that stretch of land from Altamont,
Well, they're there, but they aren't adding any more there, right?
Yes, so
well, they
Over there,
are.
one more to the left there, right? Because is that the original one?
Right on the corner. That's not a very big stretch from
No.
the corner
But
down to.
the state will weigh into that, because like they have down on Route 10.
Will they?
Yes, they will, because they
I
have,
hope they will.
they have stopped a couple of projects on Route 10 where they won't allow them to put more, like the apartment buildings.
Okay.
That's why they couldn't go on Route 10, because the state would not allow them.
Yeah, you're only allowed so many curb cuts per frontage,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they stick pretty hard to it based on the old deeds and whatnot.
And do you think, you'll have to check with our fire department, I guess, as to, or code enforcement, as to whether they would require you to sprinkle that building? Looks like a pretty large
Our
building.
intent is to sprinkle regardless. Well, by code, I think we're gonna have to. So we were gonna design a cistern with a,
That was my next question, yeah, okay, so that should be on the site.
we're aware of that. Yep. Just back to the curb cuts. So in front of the existing building there, there's an extra, like kind of an oversized curb cut directly across from the gas station. So we'd be discontinuing that and we'd move the first one would be a little bit further down.
I take it you're taking down the building that's there already.
Yes, yep.
And get rid of the go-kart and the
Yeah, I
twinkle.
was admiring the amount of tires that would have to go with it too. Oh, boy.
Yeah, so you could have a fitness program for the employees, let them use the little golf course.
So,
I do actually have one more handout for everybody. I emailed it to Sarah after she put the packets together. I do have, can walk around and distribute them. They're
I'll
11
just
by,
pass them down.
You just,
This is going to
so floor plans along with,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. One more. Big table.
Yeah, that's the big one, yeah.
I have to buy, I'm gonna have to tell the wife I gotta have a bigger desk at home. That'll get a laugh.
Sarah, do you have one?
I have,
You got one?
They already have one.
I got extras. So this is kind of a zoom in of what we alluded to on the plan there. There's two blue areas. One would be the showroom, which would have the side entrance that would
Okay.
face 32. And then you drive around the office entrances, the green section. And then the self-service where you see those small shelves that are lined up, double back to back, with about 5-foot aisles in between. And then the warehouse behind it is which serves the self-serve. So those racks are basically pallet racks. And there's loading docks off the back. And then in the back of the office in the self-serve, there's 2 stairs that would get you up to the 2nd floor, which would be employee-only mezzanine for storage. And that would be just kind of bulk storage for bulkier items that don't fit in racks well. Sheet 2 is a color elevation of the bottom of the page on the A11A. Shows a gray section, which would be the showroom entrance. The red part of the building would be Webb red. And then we have the docks off the back. And the contractor entrance has the FW Webb Company logo above it.
And what's the material?
So we do pre-engineered metal buildings, so it'd be standings, or it'd be a metal siding. And then there's a CMU at the loading docks to protect that or to be more durable. And then there's a masonry veneer, 2 different colors with a little stripe on it. In front of the self-serve and office.
So it looks like the mezzanine is over part of the building and not all of it?
Yeah, it's not over the showroom in this situation. It's
It's over that back area there, where it's over this area here?
So the front portion,
Oh, it's over that part, the blue
yeah,
portion?
it's over the
over that.
biggest blue and the green, so the
Okay.
self-serve in the office.
All right, that's where it is. Okay, so you'll have traditional 30-foot or whatever pallet racking?
In the whole entire back section.
That's the
And
part.
up on the mezzanine, they do mostly something that would be like a pallet jack. If they have like a PVC tub or enclosure, something of that sort, that would get lifted up on a forklift into the one loading area here. A little hashed out gray area, and that would lift that up onto the mezzanine.
So the boiler room and the electrical room is gonna be up in the mezzanine?
Yep,
Real,
yep. We've been doing that a lot often, especially new construction jobs where they're space on the first floor is usually at a premium.
okay, anybody have any comments on what we see here? It's flat, it is flat, but it's,
Well, it's a slanted one.
So, thinking about our update of the site plan regs, we've been working on improving our landscaping regulations. And, although you wouldn't like legally be required to reference those, they're good, so I would appreciate it if you take a good, if we could get them a copy of, a current draft of what we're thinking about for landscaping. Could we do that?
they can come in and see them, I don't know.
We
It's
can't
up to
hold them to
them.
it.
If they want to
Right.
look at it, fine. We haven't adopted them yet. We
Sure.
probably will, but we haven't yet, so.
So, but anyway,
It's your
I
best
know that
interest
it's,
to do that.
it would be in your, in my opinion, it would
Yeah,
be to your
it
best
would.
interest. But, and I noticed that you don't have really any landscaping shown on this because we're way
Right, so
early
it's
days.
separate.
But just know that that's something that I, for one, would really like to see, through. And the other thought is, my impression of this lot is that this area here is really wet. I'm sure you'll be out there looking,
there's a
but,
drainage channel that goes through there, and I think part of the intent would be to connect it up.
yeah,
Because
it seems standing water, really wet.
it's determined non-jurisdictional, so it's not wetlands.
No,
Considered wetlands.
it's just
It's pretty
like a
much
s-
a
Yeah.
drainage swale
Yep.
that could be maintained, so I think probably what we'll end up doing is redirecting that. Laying those pipes so that we can,
Yeah, so you will be
Clean it
having
up.
to dig around and move stuff around to make that happen,
yes,
to change your elevations.
yeah, it's somewhat of a hole in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that pipe runs out
Yeah, it cuts under the golf right now.
So it just drains out and then runs freely.
Anything else? It's not a public hearing, but go ahead, voice your concerns.
Park Square, just because you're under the flight path, lighting might be an issue, also the lighting on the building, but the lighting associated with vehicles moving around, lighting up the rear of the tractors, trucks being unloaded, especially in the winter hours when it's just dark earlier. So, something to keep in mind while this is.
Yeah, I would imagine in their FAA permit, that'll be brought up and they'll be held to that. Thanks.
Yeah, we're actually working with a consultant right now to extend the mapping of the height restrictions past the runway. The map that we received just stopped short of this area, so we're working to figure out what our starting point, our slab elevation is compared relative to the height of the buildings and make sure what.
Yep, so they extend the glide slope out for you so you can see.
Exactly.
Make sure you aren't running into that.
Part of our big step is to get in there and to find out what the materials are to work on our stormwater concept, to go a little bit further to figure out where things need to be elevation wise. Also, the curb cuts that you guys mentioned is important to make sure that grade's not too aggressive coming on or off.
Your lighting will be on the building?
Yep, we'll do wall packs on the building, but there'll also be pole lights around the parking areas and in the outside storage yard.
All shielded?
Yep.
May I ask a question? So do you own this property now, or you're just looking at?
FW Webb has it under agreement, but we're in the due diligence phase.
And then the 2 acres to the west, is that something that you're looking to purchase also, or how does that?
That's also under agreement right now, but it's still the due diligence phase. It's not.
And you don't have a plan for that?
The building actually kind of.
They need it for the parking and for that part of the building now.
Okay,
So this line right here
Oh, I see, okay.
is the 2 acres and this is the 5.
I was looking at that differently.
Yeah, no.
All right.
The fence that goes around the whole storage, like what kind of fence is it? But you also talked about vegetation around the fence, and then I think I heard somebody say that there has to be clearance, or maybe vegetation can't be around the fence.
Yeah, we'll typically install our kind of standard is an 8-foot tall black vinyl coated fence. So all the components, you normally see a chain link fence, they're typically galvanized. We do the black vinyl coated.
So you can see through that fence, right?
Will that
Not
be slanted
necessary.
in the,
Excuse me?
will the chain link be slanted when the?
We typically don't unless it's
So he's saying the standard is no privacy slats.
what happens is those get bent and broken and.
Like,
So the privacy would be vegetation if could be in front of the fence.
Yeah,
Screening.
the other component here is we're actually, we're sitting lower than the driveway.
Yep.
We're planning to try to stay fairly similar to what's there. Understood that we need to massage the curb cuts and make sure those driveways aren't too steep coming in and off the property. But we don't want to bring it up too high because there'll be a lot of filth come in. And certainly we can't go down.
so part of the challenges would be, again, getting landscape up there without blocking sight distance. But again, you're not gonna block what's down in the hole, when you first plant it. So it's a challenge that, it's gonna have to be dealt with, but I don't think there's any, exact solution just because of the sight distance. We need it clear, so we can't stuff vegetation up against the right of way.
Plus it's actually overhead wires and
Right.
telephone poles.
You can do a lot here, with the, for drivers who approach from this direction.
Yeah, I mean, part of our plan is to do a stormwater pond, so if we do that, we're gonna try to sheet and we'll obviously soften the edges that we try to do on everything, to make it more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, it's gonna be a prominent part of the landscape with that red, you know, red is a very arresting color.
How high, how tall is it? Northwest?
Inside the building is 30-foot clear, so the structure is roughly, between the roof and the pitch, it's a relatively, they call it a flat roof, but there is a pitch to it. So it's about 36 feet tall, if we're under the threshold of the flight path, if we're successful.
Roof that big, they might land on it.
It's always amazing to me that they, a few years ago, quite a few years ago, they ripped everything out. Now they're letting things go back in, I don't get it. But that's just true.
So Sarah, does the town require, witnessing of test pits for septic systems? Or is it just still this pre-approval to them and then the state?
That would be a question for code enforcement. On larger projects, I'm not sure if generally they do require that. To my knowledge, I would say no, but you're gonna wanna talk to Mike Jasmine.
Okay.
We want to know, why did you choose the color red?
It's,
In such a prominent position.
well, if you look at FW Webb's logo, it's a red valve, so it's their color.
It's just like Home Depot's
A
orange.
lot of their color.
In Concord, FW red is not red.
Well,
It's probably because the city made them change it.
In Keenan, it's not red.
if you notice, if you drive by the Nashua store, we just painted that red.
What?
The Nashua store right on Route 3, we just painted red.
It's
We
red?
renovated it recently.
Well, Nashville Route 3 is a little different than 32 in Swanzey.
That's true. So we broke it up a little here with the gray at the showroom. And that's the elevation that you're gonna see for the most part.
Hiding behind the tree.
Well, let's see, is the color gonna be a problem for the board? They need to know it. They need to know it now.
I'm not fond of it.
Doesn't bother me whatsoever. They could do sky blue.
I understand that the company colors, just like Home Depot is orange.
Well,
We would just
it was
like to know
subtle.
what the challenges may be before we come back and get
Yeah,
beat up.
FW red is color. And the rest, not that, you know.
So a consideration for me with the color is I have trouble visualizing how this building is gonna sit on that. I view that site as having like two layers, right? There's the top where the old restaurant used to be, and then there's down below where all the fun
Yeah,
is.
I
So,
mean, we've kind of got, I can kind of show you, it's kind of existing conditions that we're still trying to finalize, but, there's not a whole lot of grade change.
not a whole
So,
lot of what?
grade change, so this is 510 here, it's 510, runs up here, and then this drops down into a hole.
Yeah,
There's a ridge that runs here and then it drops down, so you've got a ridge along the road and a ridge behind.
Yeah.
So it's plateaued, it just drops off,
Yeah.
plateaus and drops off again to the abutting property.
so,
So this is all pretty flat, I mean, you're talking, there's only 2 feet of grade change pretty much from there to
okay.
there.
So really only the high part is like right in here.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking 2 feet, 4 feet in its entirety, pretty much where the building will be.
Goes right
Yeah,
down,
it's
doesn't it?
interesting because the building actually, the structure is closest to the road is the
Yeah,
walkout.
right,
So-
right. So we will see, this will all be basically at the same elevation as the existing building. Yes?
No, it'll be down on that.
It'll be low, it'll be down behind.
Down near the terrace view line.
In the parking area.
So it's like back in.
Well, I mean, this building, our roof is the roof of this existing building is 536, so, that's 510, so you're,
25 feet.
yeah.
Well, I guess maybe what I'm trying to say is if there would be a way that you could give us some sort of a rendering to help us visualize how it fits, on the terrain, that could be nice, right? Do you have trouble with it?
Picture.
a rendering of, that's a rendering right there, what do you mean?
Look at the red brick
You're looking for like a perspective.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, just
I
then
mean, maybe I'm the
point
only
out-
one who can't see
Similar to
it.
that, but
Point out for us where this point out this elevation.
That would be facing,
That elevation would be there, okay? You see this one here, this top one?
Yep.
That's that elevation.
Is on
The
that
west,
facing,
okay.
as you drive past, that's what you see.
Point out this elevation.
that's this one.
That's that one, the west side, I mean, the east side. So point out this
That's the
elevation
back
here.
of the building.
That's the very back towards the airport.
facing the field.
This elevation here, now point out that elevation there.
So that would be,
That's what you see from Route 32. It's this one right here, okay?
so
So
it's got some breakup on the facade, which
it
is,
does,
I
yep.
think,
The
better.
biggest red spot is facing the airport by the looks of it.
Barn red.
Give them the target.
That's what I said.
So that's, I don't know, so we saw what they're doing. Okay, you saw it, right? So.
I don't know if it's possible for you to do a site from 32, and I think this is what they're trying to get at, shooting a straight level across into the building, and how much is going to be above that sight line.
Yep, we'll do a perspective.
Yeah, that would do.
Well, if you do that perspective, put in vegetation that you plan to be there. So
It'll help.
it'll be with that.
Well, right here, we're anticipating the building to be somewhere around 5'10", right? So
Yeah.
add 36 feet to that. So we're gonna be up, a fair amount. That's 518 right here, closest to the intersection. So it's gonna be fairly
It'll be
prominent.
566.
Yeah.
Right, because you're gonna be 5 feet below there.
Right.
The total building, is how many square feet?
The footprint is 43 and change.
That's a lot of red. Now.
Well,
conceptually,
they need to know it now, yeah.
If the red was turned to this color right here, signage, I have no problem with that being red. But you said 42,000 square foot for me?
Yep.
Red? No. I mean, cars be stopping right on road because
So-
that's a red light.
So let me just ask for the board's opinion, if the expanse was broken up more, would that be more appealing as opposed to large expanses of the red? Now, obviously, that's their corporate color, like any company, they try to always carry their corporate color, it's a matter of, how much facade, I guess, would be too much for you.
It looks like it might be a problem, so it looks like you
So
better tone it
that's
down
why
a bit.
I'm trying to find, the happy medium.
I'm looking at various sides, I can't
Well, it's-
visualize.
It's up to you guys to tone it down, and the board necessarily can say that, yeah, that's too much red and what you come in with as a design, rather than the board saying, yeah, design it such and such.
Yeah, I'm
And then
just
they
trying
don't
to
like
get
it.
Get a feel, because again, the front portion of the building that's facing the road is in fact broken up
It
a
is
fair
broken
amount
up, yeah.
with the gray, so it's not as big as an expanse.
But like I say, people may be stopping for a red light and Brattleboro.
They don't stop for red lights though.
Yep.
Most, I think all of the new buildings are like covered.
Yeah, it's every newer building that we built, or even we renovate. Yep.
Would you consider that all Dollar Generals are yellow, but you look at them in different places, and the yellow is placed in different angles and in different ways? You can go by those stores in some towns, and they don't quite as Dollar General as they do in others. FW Webb is going to be the only commercial company on that corner that sells things for plumbing and the like. You got the market there, folks. It doesn't, we know it's FW Webb, and your sign has red in it, so if you could tone it down a bit, it would be really better for our town or our city, because we are a town that was settled in the 1700s, and when I drive over to the post office or go 32 to Keene, I look across there and I 9 out of 10 times say, if someone's with me, look at that view. Now, I do have a friend who says, what, the airport? No, lift your eyes, look at that view, you know, it's gorgeous. And you plank a 4,300 square foot building with at least 50% of it brilliant red, it's not gonna be beautiful. It's gonna stand out. If you paint it green, it'll stand out because there's nothing else like it anywhere in that area. It's wonderful. I'm glad you're coming. Fine. I don't want you to run away. But that color is terrible for right there.
We'll look at some
That's
options.
just my personal.
I guess, is the preference to just the street to do a little something different there? Is it okay if we keep the red towards the back and towards the customer entrance?
I think you do. And you go gray across the front there, and then you could put your Webb sign in red.
Well, this, again, this is the side you're talking about, is that correct?
Yeah.
And that's that parking lot side over there.
No,
No,
we're talking,
right,
this is the street side.
that's why I asked, but he brought up to begin with, this side right here, with the name on it there, he was wondering if that would be acceptable and to tone down the rest of them. That's your entrance where they're coming in to the left side, which is the east side right there. So, I think
This is back. The
yeah,
building
that's towards the airport.
on this end,
This is street side here, yeah.
on this end is 180 feet, and the other one is 242 for low.
I'm thinking that if you could make it where your sign is, if the background could be deep.
Well, the sign part, in my opinion, the sign part isn't the problem. The expanse is right there. That's the street side, right there where the post office is adjacent to it, right there. Free would be, yeah, since the road goes around there.
North side is going to blind the pilots.
I don't think so.
They can't seem to hit the airport these days anyway.
And given the lay of the land, I feel like the entire property will be extremely visible.
Yeah, it will be.
Looking down on it, almost from the road. Yeah. I almost just want to see a big red barn there. We'll just have a big red barn. Red barn, red barn, an actual barn.
Can we go across the front street side gray with the red, with your?
Yeah, I can take a look at that with FW
And
Webb.
make that sign in red?
I'll take a look at that. We'll come up with some options and.
You know, they got down 32, you know, once you clear the airport buildings, it really has an appearance of very rural.
Yep,
right?
yep.
I call Route 32, scenic Route 100 of, you know, in Vermont, that's, you know, Swanzey, right? And that's the character that I like to see and continue to see. So in your design, you know, shrubs, the trees, the landscaping, the building, the fence, drive it both ways and say, how much do we hide, right? Yeah, you want your name to be visible, a sign, you'll have, you know, something on the front building, but really, you know, be aware of where your resistance is going to be. You need to hide as much of that building. Outside. Hide is better.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, again, I think it's gonna be hard to quote unquote hide building. It's gonna be 38 feet
Yeah.
above the road. We obviously can bring up the facade and landscape and colors and try to soften
You're
it.
not gonna hide it, no,
Right.
no way.
Right.
Will it be hidden? But if it doesn't have to scream at us.
Yeah.
Great.
So
It's the
admittedly, we're
color.
early, so we'll add some landscaping and then I'll talk to Webb and we'll look at the color scheme a little bit. see
We're
what
going
we
to
can-
toning it down a bit, at least those three sides, maybe not the side, but even that side, you're still gonna see it. Yeah, see if they can tone it down a bit. You know, they're building up the street that they, what's the name, but they build machines up there. That's a dark gray. You can take a look at that. you know, that-
Nanotechnology?
Yeah, nano.
Yeah,
Nanotech,
take a look at Nano. It really blends in nicely.
And
It's
I
a
know
big-
your color
it's
is
a big
red,
building.
obviously, but that's a building that has gone through.
You also have to figure red fades quickly and ugly. And think like 10 years into the future, what is that red gonna look like? Besides rapidly ugly.
Hopefully they make the finishes pretty good these days. They're supposed to be good for 25 years plus, so. We'll come back with some options.
Yep, see what you can do about that.
Nanotechnologies, yeah, really good.
Yeah, the other gray is,
We're
it
very
actually,
proud of
the
that
rendering,
building.
it's a little darker than, the rendering looks lighter than what our other color is. Of course, when you print it,
We'll never match it on the print.
no,
I think they have all idea about the
yep, we're looking,
Are there gonna be compressors and et cetera on top?
rooftops, yes, there'll be, HVAC equipment on that. Yep.
But I'm sure as you're aware, that's gonna have to be below that white panel.
Yes, that's where we're, the way the calculations are right now is where the building seems as though it'll fit under the preliminary, but the units are that.
Anything else from the board? Then I guess not. Well, thanks for coming in and.
Yeah, no, we
you have some
appreciate the feedback.
Yes.
So see what you can do for us and, we'll see you again.
We do want you to bring the business.
Someone else?
Thank you for everyone's time.
Thank you.
Especially with stealing from Keene. I like stealing Keene businesses. Call up George and say, hey, we got another one.
We're asking questions, they're on the Conservation Commission, so they'll be seeing you more stuff. Just
Next
saying,
up
you know.
on our list, item C is a Conservation Commission. And they have the Wildlife Habitat and Natural Resources Protection Audit. Would you like to enlighten us on that a little bit?
I don't have too much more to say about it beyond what was already in my packet. I'm happy to answer questions and tell you a little bit about what we've been thinking. So we did sit down with Moosewood Ecological to talk about updating the open space plan to begin with, because that's 20 years old now. And also, you know, as we've been going back and forth with you all over the last year or more maybe, about various ordinances and regulations and rewriting things, and you all had questions for us about the septic system setback, and, you know, we don't have a lot of expertise to be able to answer those questions on the commission, so, we thought, well, Moosewood would probably be able to help us with that, and as it turns out, they do offer a natural resources protection audit where they'll sit down with the town and they'll go through, you know, the various ordinances and regulations and look at, what they feel the level of protection is that it's offering to the town's natural resources and where we could maybe do better. I think that would be a big help, given the questions that we've had recently. So we thought we would do that, trying to be timely, we would do that first before we launch into the open space plan and kind of let that inform perhaps the open space plan. There's also some other options that we may decide to look into. One of them was a little bit pricier, but they do offer a wetlands evaluation. So, you know, if we felt like, okay, we're having a hard time answering which wetlands in Swanzey might be more expendable than others, they'll come and actually go on the ground and look at our wetlands and be able to say, okay, maybe the town wants to talk about these particular wetlands being prime wetlands because they offer, you know, a lot of, whether it be ecological services to the town or to wildlife in town, versus, you know, wetlands that offer fewer services to the town. So that might be something we want to do over the next couple of years as well.
So how deep did they go into it? You know, they don't do a field survey on, you know, this one that we're talking about now, the one you're gonna have done now, they're just going over our regulations, or they do go out in the field, do surveys?
No, I think the field survey would come in as they do the open space protection, I mean, the open space plan. So, you know, there may be some things that they find out later that we might want to backpedal a little bit and look at that again, depending on what they find in the field. But we just felt like we wanted to start with the audit, just because you guys are in the process of looking at the regulations, and it may be that we're a little bit behind, you know, but I know it's a work in progress. you
Yeah,
know.
it's ongoing. We do it all, you know,
Yeah.
zoning and.
Didn't you do a natural resources inventory not too long ago? So
Yes.
that would inform, that was the
Yes.
boots on the
So
ground
we-
part,
yeah,
right?
So Moosewood Ecological has done a natural resources inventory and an ecological assessment for the town, and sort of the natural next step is to do the open space plan. And this will all play together, so, you know, we'll end up with a pretty complete picture, I think, by the time we're done with where we're at, and, I think it'll be really helpful.
Yeah, and then we can incorporate that into the master plan next time around.
Yes. Yes, that's it.
That'll be good. When are they gonna do it?
Well, we've asked them if they could start immediately, we just wanted to, I did talk to the selectmen already, and I wanted to talk to you all, and just, we want to keep in touch about it, I know they will, as part of this process, want to meet with, you all, so I'm still sort of, they just sent us a more detailed proposal, and I need to take that to the Concom, in June, and we'll be signing a contract, and then we'll get started, I think, immediately.
And you've worked with them before, or you have not?
I personally
Or-
haven't, but the Conservation
They have
Commission has.
already.
As recently as 2019, I think.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and I wasn't at the meeting, you were calling on that, and the Conservation Commission meeting, I'm better too.
We haven't voted to sign the contract with them.
Okay, because how does it differ from this? It goes deeper than the study that they did phase 1 and phase 2?
Yeah, so I can, that was explained, I think, in the material that you got in your proposal, and how it kind of, how it fits together. And yes, it goes deeper, and then there'll be,
So the maps will be different than these maps?
well, they'll be building on that. And they're also, one of the things that they'll be doing is helping, so I mentioned, y'all are coming up with, I think it's this thing for the town, so it'll be accessible on the website, correct? GIS
In a
maps.
while.
Well, they will be able to help give you maps that we can use on the town website as part of that. So that'll be another helpful piece. So some of those maps that we already have not changed. And so that's great, so we don't have to pay for that, but some of them will need to be updated. Probably not, yeah, those are like
The other one I
2018.
had at home, I referred to that, it's easier,
Yeah.
because it's just that.
So there'll be more information and yeah, it'll be additional to that.
It looks like it covers more our ordinances than it does those maps there. I mean, those maps will be used, but it looks like more covers wording, you know, what we have in our zoning.
Yes, this part of it, the
Yeah.
natural resource protection audit will really.
Yeah, the one that you're doing now, yeah.
The regulations in the zoning, yes.
And that's,
And then the open space plan is, you know, this was the 2004. So this will be updated, some of those maps that you were referring to will be included, and updated versions of them will be included. But it'll also just kind of give us and I'm also excited that, you know, we're doing this, Swanzey Lake Watershed Management Plan, and I think that information, will be helpful too, to inform the open space plan, I would think. I think it's all gonna sort of come together at the same time roughly, 2024. So we'll hopefully have a picture of where we need to go next and protecting Swanzey Lake and updating some of our ordinances and regulations potentially and things like that.
all right, we'll see how they do. So how long do you think that might take?
So the timeline is, I think this should be done by the end of 2023, this audit part of it, and then we're hoping by the end of 2024 to have the open space plan done.
Okay,
And there will be public meetings and.
it'll be almost time to go over the master plan again at that time, so, you know. All right, and it'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
Thanks for keeping us in the loop.
Yes, thank you.
Pardon me, oh, you have a question on this?
Who manages the open space
advantages, you mean on the ground, like?
Yeah, like, does the conservation committee, are they involved in managing the open?
Yes.
Keeping- okay. So why did I get the impression that the conservation committee or the town would not want that other guys, would not want to manage that space? Did I misread that?
No, you didn't, you heard correctly, but that's just historically, the town has not wanted the responsibility to take over those parcels of land. They'd rather someone else do it.
Because of lawsuits, or because it's a lot of invested time, or because?
Probably,
In
maybe,
an open space, don't you need to have, I mean.
well, that didn't mean that it wouldn't be open space. It just meant that the town wouldn't have to run it. The selectmen wouldn't have to run it. That was the whole deal. And there haven't been too many of them, but that's what we're talking about.
Put together a spreadsheet over the winter, which is still sort of a work in progress, but looking at all the little pieces all over town that the town owns that are potentially conservation land, and I'm not talking about baseball fields and things like that, I'm talking about little pieces of subdivisions like this, and other bigger pieces like Mount Caesar and Mount Crescent and things like that, but potentially things that the Conservation Commission might have to look at, and there's a lot of them. And I don't even know where some of them are, even looking at the map, so that's why I asked that question, is would we be adding to that? And, you know, what is our liability as the town if we're not monitoring that and something happens to it? You know, it's encroached on or some kind of law is broken, or an easement is violated, you know, what would our responsibility be? And some of those places are probably kind of hard to get to. I mean, I don't know if you have to go through somebody's backyard to get to some of them. Public access is not an easy.
That's why we had problems with some of them before. Some people wouldn't let along their land, remember?
I wasn't here for that.
Oh, that's right, well, when he came.
Right.
He would tell us.
Yeah, people don't have to give permission to
Right.
ground check.
He has, Jeff Wilson has to get permission to go on some people's property with these studies. And some people say, no, I don't want to. So,
That's what private property is all about, though. I mean, that's what partially founded this country,
they
private
have to
property.
say.
But on the parcel, we just have to be around one house, which is fine, right?
As far as we know, but we don't know what the neighbors have been doing on them, you know, have the neighbors been deciding to put a shed on them or,
Yeah.
yeah, right, you can't go in and I was trying to monitor some of the pieces like the piece adjacent to Honey Hill that the town owns, and there's no boundary markers, so I'm just sort of wandering around hoping I'm on the right property, and I have no idea. It's tough.
And there, that.
Yeah, well, yes, those were my guess.
Thank you.
Anything else?
How many of these properties do not have street access?
But yes, right, well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's well landlocked, you know.
Right.
Theoretically, there's not supposed to be landlocked properties in New Hampshire, but we know there are. But theoretically, they're not. If you can walk into it, it's not landlocked.
What, didn't the town have one that they sold recently?
Recently, two of them. I thought there were two of them. I think they sold
Or
recently.
two down in,
Yeah.
It's
Here,
one.
oh, in Chesterfield. I don't know about Chesterfield.
there's one in Chesterfield.
Yeah, there was one in Chesterfield they sold.
Sizable, and there's no way to get to it without going through other people's property. Did they, I thought they had that for sale.
Yeah, it sold
It's
some
sold.
number of months ago. I think it was purchased by one of the abutters,
Good. I thought it did.
which makes sense.
Yeah. There's another one on, the hill on the left, across from the fairgrounds, up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, was it Page Land?
Well, I don't know.
Well, not across,
There's townland up on that, what is that hill? The name of that hill, across
well,
from
Huggins.
Mount Huggins, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was some townland up there, I believe, and Glenn used to talk about it.
Yeah, he used to talk about a lot of that
His
stuff.
brother and my husband.
They all hunted up there. They grew up over in there. Yeah.
And it's not accessible.
But that's why when I think, I thought it was kind of for somebody's yard.
There is
I
one
was.
driveway. It's up there from Huggins Drive. for the airport to maintain that light.
Oh, is there? They have a right of way up through there.
Yeah, there's, go almost all the way down Hudson Drive. And then loop up, there's like a class 6 road. But the airport has access to maintain that light.
Okay, anything else on that?
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's, you too. And we had our plan reading workshop in the beginning of the meeting, this time going over that other.
Smart.
So we don't have to do that.
Good job.
So any other business required at the meeting?
I have a thing that I threw in front of everybody on the table before you got here. And
Oh, yeah.
it is the legal response to the site plan regulations. And what they don't like, what they'd like us to revise. And I think the most important thing is on the list is the first thing listed, which is basically looking at our multi-tenant process
Yeah, that did.
and home-based business. And I was not able, Michael Granley, this came in last night, so I was not able to touch base with Michael today to determine if we have a select board process for home-based business, because I'm not aware of one, but that does not mean that one doesn't exist. So we're sort of,
That came, when that was put in, that came from, well, not this one, it came
Yeah,
from like that little one
earlier
that I
one.
used to have there. That's where it came from. And so we'll have to see if that's still in there, because that's why it ended up with the selectmen. Because I always thought it should have been the planning board that decided that, but well, the planning board had the option, I think. The planning board passed it on to the selectmen because they didn't want to deal with it. So that's how they ended up with it, but I don't think that.
Do they still sign off or?
They do,
Yeah.
but as Sarah said, I don't think they have any prerogative, I mean, any guidelines to go by
Yeah, there's-
to do it.
there's
They
no
just
metric.
say, oh, that one looks like one and that one doesn't look like one.
yeah.
So that's what,
I always felt like it was just sort of a no, so they kind of know what was going on in
Yeah.
town, but it wasn't.
yeah, no, that wasn't that. They needed an authority to decide if it was one or not before they continued.
So
Isn't there something that asks how many vehicles are gonna be using your driveway per day, or that kind of thing?
We do in our regulations in the,
I know, but I mean, I thought my home-based business here was too. I can think of several. One vehicle.
well, now we have a distinction though. We have home occupation and home-based business. We divided it up. We have home-based business comes before us. Home occupation is granted outright if it doesn't change any character of the neighborhood or anything.
Right, and you don't even know it's there when you
Yeah.
go by.
That type of business, yeah.
So, I mean, I think the biggest part of this is the question of site plan review. And so what I'm gonna sort of recommend, and you guys can totally disagree with me on this, but since we have other things, like, I feel like we're this close to getting these regulations implemented with the changes, but I feel like we already have a lineup started for the next round of revisions. Should we take legal suggestions into the next round and proceed with implementation in an upcoming meeting so that we have parking and landscaping? Or do you want to go through and try to address all of these before implementation?
My opinion would be, let's take these and look them over for our next meeting and decide there might be one or two, like you're talking about, more important to put into this round of regulations and leave the rest for another round of regulations, maybe. Anybody else think that?
I know you
We
guys
have to
haven't
read
had
them over.
an opportunity to really scrutinize.
In the
this
meantime, we can research to see if there's anything in there about the selectmen.
Yeah, or,
Yeah.
yeah, we do that right, just to see what the points are, and maybe the planning board will take that back. I'm sure the selectmen wouldn't care whether the planning board had it or not.
From what I could gather, some of them are pretty no-brain.
Some of them are, yeah.
There's a couple
are
that,
pretty small.
I mean, and this was me like trying to read with my fingers in my ears because it's dense, but
It is.
I think for the most part, we could probably pretty easily accept these right now, like today, or not today, please, but,
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna choke on
Okay.
most of these.
We'll look them over then for the next meeting and
I'll
decide.
put this back on the agenda for the next meeting. Okay.
And you're going to review that section.
I did review that section and I only encountered about 30 seconds by Steve Buckley talking about that, and I watched the whole section, and I watched the question and answer thing that came at the end. So I'm still not seeing anywhere where Stephanie Verdile talks about preliminary consultation. Okay, yeah, you keep looking. I mean, I'll do my best. Tomorrow is probably going to be devoted to all of the minutes. Gosh, you guys talk a lot.
Poor Beverly, right?
And again, that's
why she needs a
more
day
time,
off.
right? You're talking about, what you're discussing with more time for the preliminaries.
It's a,
The requirement of a preliminary.
A requirement of one, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
whether we can require it or not, because we're not required to do it, but whether we can require one to be done.
Or
Is that what you're talking
we
about?
can require it,
We can,
but the advantages or disadvantages or communities that actually do require it, so that if we want to consider something like that, we can look at their regulations or talk to them and find out how that works for them. If you guys want to consider it.
See, I don't know, I still think that we pretty much have enough time to look these things over. You know, and I know the other time, there are times that we won't, but that last one that brought a lot of this up, the one up here, which we won't mention, that had a lot of extenuating circumstances through the ZBA, some of it. Most of the time, I think that we have enough time to review these, and if we don't have enough information, if we need another study or whatever it is, and the applicant does not want to give us an extension of time, then we have it in our capability just to deny it because they don't have enough information. We couldn't on the other one because they had already been done in the ZBA and taken care, went through the courts and all that stuff. But the planning board can do that, and if they say no, then it's no. You know, it's to their advantage to say, okay, we'll give you another 30 days or something to look it over, and we do the study and have it done. That's my view of it, rather than requiring a preliminary on these.
well, again, if we have it in the regulations that it's required, we can waive it if we see or feel as though when they come in to do that, that everything is complete.
But again, with that preliminary, it's only conceptual. You know, we went a little bit beyond conceptual with the ones in tonight, but it's only basically the concept and the zoning laws involved and those types of things. We can't really get too deep.
It's also.
But we did-
Just a second, let me, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, but we just did that.
With
Last
these guys?
No,
Oh.
the previous meeting with the woman who wanted to put her, or extend her beauty salon. Because she came in for a conceptual, we said, okay, we looked at it, everything looks good, we'll do the meeting. And
She actually didn't
Yeah.
come in for conceptual.
No, she didn't. No, she came in to have the planning board decide whether we wanted a site plan review or not.
Right. Which
And the
is
board can do
different.
that. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay,
And there had been a beauty parlor.
right.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Steve?
Question is, when you run regulations, shall versus may.
Yeah, shall is directed.
Yeah, the board may request, not that the board shall request. It's permissive, shall is mandatory.
But I guess the thing to ask ourselves is, do we need it? You know, it's beneficial mainly to the applicant rather than to the planning board to come in for something like that. Like these guys, for instance, that were just in here. You know, it came up that that's a pretty big red building over there, and the color might be a problem, but had they not been in for that, they might have gotten through the whole site plan there, and we get to the very end to decide it and say, well, that color's off, we aren't gonna do it, go back. You know, it was to their advantage, but they didn't have to do that. But I mean,
It's going to save them some time.
it's not a time thing, yeah, it'll save them some time, but again, it's not a time thing, I think, for us. But, you know, we can think about it. But it's very limited as to what we can really discuss. We can't get into we can get into the basics, but not into the specifics of the plans when we do the preliminary part of it. Design review phase, that's different. Then we can get into things like we were tonight, you know, design review. But other than that, it's basically, will it fit on the property? You're gonna be able to hit the setbacks, you're gonna be able to do the drainage, you're gonna be able to do this or that, it's gonna be too big or whatever. Those are just general conceptual things.
Under the state regulations, under 674-44, under J, well, 2 says the site plan review regulations, which the planning board adopts may, and then under J it says require preliminary review of site plans.
Yeah, so it gives us permission to do it. We can do it if we want to do it.
So we can require.
Yeah,
So-
we
so-
can require it in our regulations. But do we need to? That's the question. That's what I'm trying to get to. Do we need to do that?
Regulations should allow for it. They,
Well, we do. We have it in there that they can if they want to.
They,
Yeah, but we can't require it, but
we can require.
But I think, why do we need to? Why should we? That's the question I'm trying to, you and I are going back and forth, and we're trying to answer, do we need to do that or not?
Need to, and sometimes not.
it's on a case-by-case basis.
That's why.
But
we have the right to say, that it's not required.
One act.
But if it's a large development or whatever coming up there, I would imagine Sarah and Mike too, probably, but Sarah especially, would say it might be beneficial to you to come into the board like these guys did with for
That's
preliminary.
exactly why they came.
Yeah, because suggest it, and that's, on that side of it, that's where it should be, I think. Sarah knows, as the size of a project or something like that, as what the board would
And it
honor
was
what
the
they would-
same with Dr. Dexter as well.
Yeah.
His things seemed pretty complicated, and I suggested he come in for a preliminary with all of you so that
And that helps, yeah, it helps.
to help
Helps
try to
helps
put
that.
together a
Yeah.
better project before he comes in for design review or site plan review or the subdivision or.
Could we word it such that they would be required to come before the officers, being Sarah, Mike, for review? And then come to us?
I don't know, I wonder if we could do that. They do that anyway, but I'm wondering,
Yeah, I
because
know.
there are some things,
Sequence.
like the planning board can authorize the land use boards to do certain things and to, like, for instance, we authorize the land use board now to approve signs. And we don't do that anymore here, things like that. But I don't know if we can require them to go to land use for that. It's hard to say, that's an idea.
It's helpful, it's like getting department review, it's like getting the fire, not their sign.
And they should want that, yeah.
Because they're not seeing the complete thing yet, but they can give us some ideas, this is something that, we should pay attention to or something.
And-
Sarah has an idea of what the board likes and doesn't like. And Sarah can turn around and say, if you want to go with that, you can, but I would suggest.
I actually do that already. I mean, I do
Yeah.
try to prepare applicants based on the feedback that I've seen you guys deliver and the regulations that the community has. If you come to the board with that, it's gonna be uphill. And I let them know that, and often things are revised
That's
before you see them.
helpful for us and for them too, but helpful for us that, to waste their time or our time. And basically, it's like, basically, that's a preliminary review that you guys do, really, because you're going over the zoning regulations, lot size, just general terms and that type of stuff.
Give Mr. Peel something more to do.
He doesn't work on any of his stuff usually.
But, sometimes I think, the regulations that we have are designed to cover the entire state.
They are.
And we happen to be very lucky in that we have an exemplary staff planner, in our pocket, whereas a lot of towns, they don't have anything, they're just flailing away. So, I think it's wonderful what you do. Thank you.
Yeah, helps a lot.
But I agree, I do think that provision is in there. Well, this is why I really want to find the section that Richard has been bringing up from the planning and zoning workshop from a couple of weeks back that OPD put on, and BEA and NHMA. Oh my God, they have so many letters. To see what they said about it, if the requirement for that really is more intended for communities that don't have staff, because a lot of the state has communities with no staff, and they have the regional planning commission that supports their meetings, but they don't have full-time planning staff and code enforcement and all of that. So,
The small towns, yeah, I agree.
and in those
Yeah.
cases, the requirement of a preliminary consultation makes sense, because that would take the place of what staff does when an application comes to the town.
Yeah, that it makes sense, maybe that is how it got
I'll see if I can get to the bottom of that, and perhaps that, I did not pick up what town she is in or involved in, and that may be exactly why they made it a requirement.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense.
does, yeah.
In those cases, because you do need more time to review it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I have hopefully at least a 3-week lead time before you guys see anything to review it and get more information and request changes so that when you guys see it, it's as close to a complete application as I can force out of an applicant with as much information as I can get from them.
Well, probably let's see the color red.
I saw the color red a couple days ago when they submitted that, and I thought, let's see what the board says.
Policy, I can't remember, I didn't bring my phone in with me, but I sent a message to you last week about training that's coming up in Lee, New Hampshire. Wasn't that about CRS development?
I can't remember off the top of
Was that a, I just saw it too.
I think I forwarded that to the board.
It's way over on the seacoast though to go, if you wanted to go.
It's in Lee, that's not quite the secret.
Well, it's
Close.
pretty close,
It's not quite.
closer than we
You
are.
guys are something else. I mean, I grew up in Ohio. If you wanted to go from the Ohio River to Lake Erie, then you could complain. It's
Straight from there on with Buffalo, we look.
a 2-mile drive, that's too far.
All right, let's get back to Swanzey.
It's pretty interesting and informative.
Anything else we need to discuss this evening? If not, motion to adjourn is in order.
So,
Motion to adjourn by Jane, seconded by Richard. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, great.
This meeting was recorded by Falls Area Community Television, located at 1 Hospital Court, Bellows Falls, Vermont. If you would like a copy of the meeting, our phone number is 802-463-1613, or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community TV, keeping government honest.